What's going on, everybody? It's your boy JT, and welcome back to the first of a long time episode of South Stand signings. You can see my light is clearly very excited to be back for some South Stand signings action, but not as excited as me. And I know you're thinking, where have you been for the past 8 days of transfer activity? Listen, we all know nothing major happens along the first 8 days. We've spoken to death about all of that stuff. But this right here, right now, is where everything starts to get a little bit juicy. So from here until the end of the transfer window, stay locked and loaded. Because, boys, we are going to be sitting down every day, every morning, afternoon, and just having a little chinwag about Leeds United transfer news. And boy, there is a lot for us to dig our gnashes into. Now, I'm not going to waste any time mucking about. We're going to get straight into the first story. And the first story is surrounding a player Leeds were very excited to get. Well, Leeds fans were very excited at the prospect of getting their hands on. Who is this man? It is, of course, big boy Fabio Carvajal. Now, a little bit on Fabio Carvajal. Obviously, he had that fantastic campaign at Fulham. Every fan was very excited about potentially getting him while we were in the Premier League even. He then snubbed us, stayed at Fulham for another 6 months, ended up going to Liverpool after that. But it never really worked out for him. Went out to RB Leipzig. Never really managed to get much of a consistent game time. He really never impressed. Now he has been touted to have another loan move out to the Championship. Leeds were very interested in him. Leeds weren't the only club very interested in him. This is, of course, coming out of a report from the Football Insider by Wayne Vasey, who have told us that Leeds were very close to getting him. Also, another club very close to getting him, Southampton, Wolves, and Sheffield United. However, neither of those sides, and especially Leeds, were not able to offer consistent enough game time. So, who did Liverpool turn their faith to? Well, they turned their faith to an unlikely hero, and that was Hull City. Liam Rosenior's side are apparently set to secure the 21-year-old services after they impressed Liverpool Chiefs, and this is very key, with their development of Tyler Morton, who is also on loan from the Reds and has flourished at the MKM Stadium. There is no obligation for Hull City to buy Carvalho, with Liverpool still hopeful he can emerge as a first-team regular at Anfield in the summer. However, it does seem like Leeds have lost out on the prospect of potentially getting him for 6 months. What do you guys think about that one? Do you think it's a big blow? Everyone's talking about him potentially playing in the 10. For me, I do think we need backup in that area just in case of a player like Rutter getting injured, so I would have been really happy at the prospect of Carvalho joining the side. Are you guys gutted about that? I think there's many more options out there, and as I said, all we need is a backup because Rutter is the man in that position. And our next story takes us over to the full-back department, where we're going to be talking about that guy, Connor Roberts. We've had a lot of people talking about him the past few days, ever since Djed Spence's immediate exit over to Tottenham. It is being reported by Danny Bloomer that yes, he would. Apparently, he would like the prospect of joining up with Dan James, Ampadu, Joe Rodon, and especially Joe Rodon. He has a good partnership with him at Wales. Could that transpire over to Leeds United? That would be a very interesting proposition. However, the Yorkshire Evening Post are coming out and stating that there is nothing imminent regarding a move for Roberts. It is said that Burnley would only be willing to part with the 28-year-old this month if a replacement comes in, with Brazilian Vitinho the only other option at right back in Vincent Kompany's squad. This may be a case of Leeds having to be patient in regards to their January business. It is never easy to do business this month, as clubs do not want to part with their players mid-season and leave them out short. It's an interesting move, this whole Connor Roberts debacle. Obviously, he's got a good relationship with the Welshman in our side, and it seems like, especially with some of the other stories we're going to get onto later, Leeds are really targeting a lot of those Welsh players. But obviously, he's got a good relationship with Joe Rodon, and he could be a consistent right back. Shouldn't have too many injury problems, and hopefully could do a good job for Leeds. He isn't really someone that got me excited in the same way Djed Spence did, if I'm being perfectly honest. Doesn't really turn my gears in the same way, but it's still an interesting prospect nonetheless. I'd like to hear what you guys think about that one down below. Now, something I think you guys will all be unanimous on is the fact that Joe Gelhardt really hasn't kicked on in the way that we would have liked to over at Leeds United, and it does seem like other clubs are potentially looking at taking him off our hands. Two of those clubs are huge clubs over in Scotland, and those are Celtic and Rangers. Apparently, both Celtic and Rangers are intrigued at the prospect of securing Joe Gelhardt from Leeds United, and this is coming from a report by the Mail Online. Ex-Wigan star is thought of highly by both Scottish giants Celtic and Rangers. There is no information as to whether Gelhardt would be making a permanent or temporary move to Glasgow if this was to happen in January, and for me, I believe it probably would be inclined to be a temporary move, because Leeds United, especially with the 49ers now, seem a bit more reluctant to part with our players on a permanent basis, and it does seem like, although we may potentially need to, for a story I'll get on into a little bit when it comes to Charlie Creswell, I don't really think that Leeds will let him go permanently. However, because of FFP implications, maybe a permanent move may be a good idea. However, it may not just be those two that are interested in stealing him away or are successful in stealing him away, because the club that are really emerging as a dark horse are Plymouth Argyle, who Leeds have just drawn in the cup. That Plymouth are another party interested in the services of the versatile youngster. It is reported that FARC is in no way interested in losing the player and has told both Gelhardt and Charlie Creswell they will be staying at Leeds, but those words don't necessarily mean everything, because we've heard that many times in football, and we don't know whether that is a marketing ploy or whether it is facts. In other news, we are going to be turning our interest over to centre-back reinforcements, which would obviously come if Charlie Creswell was to depart from Leeds, and one of them would be Mepham. This is another report over by Danny Bloomer, and he states that Mepham will be open to a Bournemouth exit, obviously not having the best of times over there in terms of consistent football. He said, "You're more patient when the team is doing well. You appreciate a manager and will not look to rotate a winning team. Why would he? At the same time, it is important to push and answer questions, as it shows you care, and as a professional athlete, you train all week to play on the weekend. If that's not happening, questions will be asked and there are conversations to be had. I wouldn't say I'm okay at being left out of the team. You never really want to settle for being just a squad player, and that can come in, every now and then. I certainly value myself as being better than that, and I wouldn't be in my character if I was content with that. Naturally, you have to think about leaving. I've been at the club a long time, and I'm probably, in football terms, coming to the peak of my career now at 26. I would disagree with that one, especially as a defender. Your peak, I would say, comes around 29 to 30 years of age. We'll let you know if further updates do arise on that situation. Now, one thing that we don't really want many further updates on is the next story, which is regarding Chris Sourceo III, and this is a report coming out of Birmingham Live's Amy Wilson. And the report basically goes on to state Aston Villa are very, very interested in swiping him away from Leeds United. I'm hearing reports that apparently Spurs are also throwing their hat in the mix. Crystal Palace, obviously, have been long-term admirers of him, but Aston Villa, having a phenomenal season in the Premier League, could be a potentially dangerous club to be involved with interest over Summerville, because they could potentially offer him some good game time, as well as the prospect of Champions League or Europa League football the following campaign. Although they are linked with him, Leeds have absolutely no interest in selling him at this current moment in time, and Somerville himself is in no rush to force for a move, which is quite refreshing to see. Obviously, we saw Gnonto force for a move in the summer. We saw Sinistero force for a move in the summer. We didn't really see Somerville force for a move, and apparently we're not seeing him do that now, which is very, very, very big for me, because he is by far and above our best player. It is reported that Leeds are willing to stand strong on this, and we have slapped a £30 million valuation on the head of Summerville. Finally, some more exciting news for Leeds United, and that comes in the fullback department surrounding Neco Williams, and this comes out of a report from Phil Hay on the Square Ball podcast. He has been told by a few people that Leeds are interested in the former Liverpool prospect. He did add that it would be a difficult deal for Leeds United to get done, as the new Forest manager, Nuno Espirito Santo, is apparently a key admirer of Neco Williams. I think the way Leeds United like to play, we like to have one fullback who sits back and one who attacks, and if that left-handed side fullback is Sam Byram, I'd much rather have our attacking output coming from that right-hand side, especially because Somerville likes to hug the wing on that left-hand side, and we don't really need someone overlapping as much. Finally, to end off, we are going to be talking about Charlie Creswell. Charlie Creswell obviously has been a hot topic of debate for Leeds fans over the past week. And obviously, his father came out, had some choice words to say about Daniel Farke and the club as a whole, but it isn't a move that I'm necessarily sure Leeds will be making. Obviously, there are a plethora of clubs interested, Ipswich being, probably the most likely to tempt him to stray away from Leeds United, however, probably the least likely for Leeds to want to sell to. This article does touch on some interesting facts, and that is surrounding FFP regulations, where a club is not permitted to make losses greater than £105 million over 3 years. Creswell sale will give Leeds additional room to play with in their annual budget, and then we could potentially bring a centre-half in on loan. Listen, it's interesting. Do you guys think we should let him go for FFP, or do you think it is still better to keep him in and around the club, even if you don't think he's going to get any game time? Anyway, let me know what you guys think about all of those moves down in the comment section down below. For now, guys, I will see you very, very soon. Au revoir, my brothers and my sisters.